feel like I'm trapped, even though you got me this roadmap. Why won't I open it up? Why won't I open it up?
Okay. Welcome to Mercy's Path podcast. Yes, we have a brand new setup. It is what it is. Today, I'm here with Sarah. You can wave because then the camera's going to point to you.
Hey, guys.
Yeah, whenever. Yeah, anyways.
Just
listen,
tell me what to do.
Yeah,
I'll do whatever you tell
we
me.
are. Is this your first time doing something like this?
Yes, other than talking into my own Instagram for like a minute. So
I know it's a weird setup. We've got two different cameras. We've got lots of mics going around. Sorry about the audio last time. This is my attempt to fix it. So Sarah is a amazing mother of 4 beautiful children. And I've known you for how long?
since I moved to Lloyd, I think, so 2017.
Yeah, 2017. So almost 10 years. I think I said 7 years because you're trying to get a cat.
Yes, we got the cat. We're picking it up on Tuesday.
Yeah, when the Border Paws Animal Shelter called me about your reference, they're like, "How long have you known her?" And I went, "Oh my gosh, like a long time, like 7 years, I think." And anyways, I gave you a glowing review, and now you're getting a cat, so that's
Yes.
good. They asked me if you were responsible. I was like, "She's very responsible. She has a lot of kids to be responsible for." So anyways, so I brought Sarah here today to talk about some stuff. She's going to talk about whatever she wants to talk about. But mostly, I just admire this woman so much because she is,
You're so sweet.
she's just the epitome of like natural, holistic, motherly, feminine awesomeness. And, I've always been really curious and I want more people to know about home birth and that it's possible. And I guess so. So just tell us you know what? Start with like who you are, like where
Well,
you
thank
came
you.
from.
You did. I aspire to be all of those things that you just said, so thank you for that. And yeah, my main title right now in life is just mother, and I'm fully sinking into that and just trying to give that my full attention. I guess we can wear many hats during life, and I've been lots of other things, but yeah, right now I think just mother sums it up. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I love that. And you are one of the most brave people I know because you've had your babies at home.
Yes.
I just think that's so cool. I've always wanted to do that. I was going to do that a couple years ago, but you know, life had other plans. Um, so tell us, like, I don't know. I know you have your birth stories on Instagram. Oh, and I'll throw up her Instagram handle as well.
You can read all the dirty details
Yeah.
there, but
I love reading your birth stories. Whenever you've had a baby, I'm like, ooh, let's go birth story post.
yeah. They're fun to read. That's part of my birth prep all the time when I'm pregnant is reading other birth stories and listening to birth podcasts, just listening to other women's positive stories about birthing at home. So I knew that I wanted to have a home birth, I think before I even found out I was pregnant. And it just was something that felt normal to me, something that felt right. So if anyone's into like sourdough bread and then you find out, well, sourdough bread is actually what bread was the whole time before it was like brought into stores and then they added yeast and stopped using sourdough starters. Like sourdough's been around for a long time. So to me, home birth is like kind of the same thing. It's just how it was meant to be before it was medicalized. It's like before it was brought into the hospital and then managed by doctors. So
Yeah. And they say there's like a period in time in like I don't remember. We talked about this once a long time ago where when they first started doing hospital births, there was way more infant mortality was higher because these men were getting involved.
yeah, well, and they used to just knock women out completely. And then they would wake up and have the baby. I think that was like in the 50s or something like that. So that might be okay. I don't know what that's like, but it kind of takes away that age-old, time-tested process of giving birth, which I have come to find out is actually quite important for the female psyche to experience that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so many women talk about how traumatic birth was. Like for me, it was 36 hours of absolute hell. Like just like needles and not being able to walk and just being violated and
It's scary.
having your water
It's
broken manually
scary.
is assault. I feel like
Totally,
it's assault.
totally. Because, and it's not like you're in a state where you can consciously weigh the risks or really think about it in a logical type of way, just like the nature of birth and the hormones, the hormonal cascade that allows labor to happen naturally. You're not really in a headspace to be weighing the pros and cons, and I feel like women aren't even really given a chance. They're in that state of like fear or being scared already getting to the hospital, and then they're told something like, well, we need to do this, we need to break your water, we need to do this to you, we need to, just basically take over from a process that is, again, like very natural and innate in the woman's body.
Yeah. Yeah, and the way they do it in the hospital is not natural at all. Like when they put you on the drip to make your hormones, like it's just so
Yeah,
awful.
there are risks with all of those interventions, and there's risks when you're at home as well. There's always a risk. There's always a risk, but it just really comes down to what makes the mother feel safest, and that will usually facilitate the most spontaneous labor for her. Is that feeling of safety and comfort, and not, being scared or pushed against a wall or having to kind of go in with her fists up.
Yeah, that's crazy. I never thought of it that way before because, yeah, some women, like, I feel like because of my traumatic experience last time, if I ever did have another kid, I would go into the hospital terrified. Like, just like on edge, probably crying from anxiety because of what happened last time.
Yeah.
So that's why I feel like I would want to try home birth. But then when I was like pregnant a few years ago, I told the gynecologist I was planning to have a home birth, and she told me the most horrific stories to scare me out of it. And I walked away being like, I'm not gonna do it. And then a couple days later, I'm like, she just fear mongered me.
Yeah.
Like I do
That's what the
not.
entire prenatal care system is based on, is fear. And they make money off of that. And it's not as malicious as I'm probably making it sound, but it is based on fear. Like they're constantly checking, is everything okay? Is everything okay? That's the whole point. At 3 months, you go for the ultrasound to make sure there's a heartbeat. Well, why wouldn't there be a heartbeat? At 3 months, if there wasn't a heartbeat, you would have probably already miscarried by 3 months. Your body's not going to hold on to that. And then at 20 weeks, they do another ultrasound, again, to make sure everything's okay, to make sure everything's growing. And it's like, why wouldn't it be growing? And the thing with ultrasounds, like this podcast could go in so many different directions, but the thing with ultrasounds is they're not inherently safe. There's lots of adverse effects, like they heat up the fetal tissue, causing changes to the DNA. It produces a very unpleasant sound for the fetus. If you've ever seen a baby on a 20-week ultrasound, you can literally see the baby trying to get away. They're very like frantic and like wiggly and trying to get away from that sound. So too many ultrasounds can cause changes in the DNA. And they're also notorious for being inaccurate. So seeing things that aren't really there. An ultrasound tech described it to me once as resonance off of a microphone. Like it's not an exact picture of what is inside. It's sound waves that are bounced off. And so sometimes there can be things that it looks like something, but it's actually not. So I know lots of women who've like, oh, they told us it was a girl, but actually it was a boy. Oh, they told us the baby had Down syndrome, and then it didn't. Like, could you imagine being told your baby has Down syndrome and like considering abortion, and then the baby's born and everything's fine? So they're notoriously inaccurate and not that healthy for the baby. I don't enjoy it. I walked out of my last ultrasound just because I was not feeling it. I just felt like, why am I here? I don't want to do this. And but a lot of people perceive the risks. Like if an ultrasound could tell you something that would change your decision in the future, the perceived risk outweighs the perceived benefit. No, the other way around. The perceived benefit outweighs the perceived risk. So women aren't even told that ultrasounds are not that great for the baby. Because they've just been normalized. Like some doctors want to check every time. Some doctors know, and they, like my doctor, I told him, like, I'm not going to go back for that 20-week ultrasound because I walked out, didn't want to be there, and he was fine with that. So ultrasounds are a whole other story, but
Well, and when you told me that, like, a while back, I, like, looked up videos of, like, ultrasounds and people saying that it's bad. And, yeah, there's tons of videos of, like, the baby, like, trying to get away. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And there's actually... I watched this horrible show. It was, like, fake and whatever. But it had, like, one of the world's first ultrasound machines in it. And then it, like... essentially fried x-rayed the baby, like, and then she ended up having premature labor, and the baby was, like, not well.
Right.
It survived, but it was not well. Mm-hmm. And it was like, and then I just flashed back to what you had told me, and I was like, whoa, like, I bet the technology,
just not told.
Yeah, I bet technology is advanced more now, but yeah, why aren't we telling people that it's not, your baby doesn't like that? Like,
well, and then because of the prenatal care model is based on fear, and then it projects all this fear onto the mother, like, why wouldn't you go for that 20-week ultrasound just to make sure everything's okay?
Yeah.
And if it's not okay, wouldn't you want to know? But I'm really of the opinion, like, I don't think I would want to know, because if it was inaccurate, and then I was, like, just stressed out for the remainder of my pregnancy, wouldn't it be better, like, if the baby was going to pass away after it was born, wouldn't it be better to just, like, have that pregnancy and not be stressed the whole time? Mm-hmm. That's probably not everyone's opinion, but I forgot what I was going to say. Oh, yes. A lot of people aren't willing to take on that responsibility of knowing and then something bad happening, and they could have stopped it. And that's quite a big ask. Like, that's quite a big responsibility to, trusting God and kind of let God take over and fate and everything else. That's quite a big ask. But for me, that was just the only way to do it.
Yeah. And you just nailed it right there. Like, we shouldn't know. We're not supposed to know.
Yeah, we're not supposed to know. Like, I always say, if we were supposed to look, there'd be a window, and there's not. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, some people say they know just based on, oh, you're carrying low, so you must have a boy, or, oh, you have lots of heartburn, so it's going to have lots of hair. Like, that's, like, cool, like, old wisdom, I think, that doesn't always turn out to be accurate.
I've been really wrong about all of that stuff, so.
But it's like, I would rather just, like, go by those little things than, have the fetus inside me, mm-hmm. like, squirming and being in distress. Mm-hmm. Because then you're giving birth to a child who's already been traumatized, as if, like, the trauma that happens to us just in day-to-day life isn't enough, and they absorb all of that.
Totally.
Then you're gonna, and let's talk about that. Like, so I fully believe that, like, whatever happens to the mother happens to the child mm-hmm. when they are pregnant. Mm-hmm. So let's talk about that.
So from what I know from Ayurveda and, like, traditional Chinese medicine, is women are sort of ill-advised to even watch, like, horror documentaries or scary movies or murder shows or anything like that, just because of the response in your nervous system. Your body doesn't know if that's real or fake, and so you're kind of inundating the baby with those frequencies again of, like, fear and high cortisol and high adrenaline. And so that's kind of from the Ayurvedic perspective. And from what I understand, from what I know, is the only sort of energy center that is active or developing in a fetus is the root chakra, which is just, am I safe or am I not safe? Like, everything else develops outside, but that first one inside the womb is, am I safe or am I not safe? So that's kind of my thoughts on that. It's just, women are just supposed to, like, do things they enjoy and be around other women, and it's not always possible, in today's today's day with working and everything, but at least to do something enjoyable and that makes you happy every day.
Yeah, and I've seen, you have a troubled relationship, say, and you're pregnant, and then you're fighting with your spouse all the time, and you're crying all the time, and then a baby is born, and then that baby has, anger issues and seems depressed. Like, it's 2 years old, yet acting, very, like, just,
It's a product of the environment, right?
yeah, and it's like as a society, people tend to be like, "Oh, that kid is bad," and it's like, no, you need to love that kid more, or you need to accept the emotions and not tell them to just stop. Like,
Yeah.
let them. And that's what I love about the mother you are, because you let your kids just like be, and live and like really just like feel.
Well, the interesting thing about that is like they show me to do that. You know what I mean? Like if we're fighting on something and I'm like pushing for them to stop the emotion or stop crying, it's like, why am I even doing that? Like sometimes you got to just get it all out. I mean, that's what my 5-year-old son said to me. So like he's kind of showing me the way on that, because there are certain times where I'm triggered by behaviors that I wasn't allowed to do as a child, and getting triggered isn't a choice, but acting on that trigger is a choice. So, and I just think it's like almost one of the worst things you can do is punish a child for having an emotion. Because number one, they don't have any emotional control. Number two, they don't understand what they're feeling or what an emotion is or how to really express it any other way. They can't have a conversation like you and me.
Yeah.
So it's all about just getting creative, I guess, and like letting them figure it out. Like I asked them to draw me a sad picture when they were sad, and it worked. Like they drew me a little sad face with like tears, and then they were like so proud of the picture that they stopped the negative stimulus for me, which was the crying, which is like, oh my God, like stop crying.
Yeah. Wow.
But yeah, they will show you the way if you let them. And so, yeah, that's very humbling.
Oh, that's so wise. Well, and I know that you talk about this a lot too, about just noticing how you were treated as a child and how you're reacting to your own child now. It's like, it's so healing to be able to be like, no, I'm not gonna do what was done to me.
Even in the most simplest sense, like that's not to say that anybody did anything wrong. But yeah, like kids aren't allowed to, like just yanked out of the way, like, oh, get out of the way for other people, look out of the way for other people. And it sort of like compounds this belief that, there's no space for you in the world, or that, other people are more important than you. You have to get out of their way and stuff like that. Like kids just aren't allowed to exist in public spaces. And then for my generation, but even more so for like our parents' generation, like children are, what's that saying? They are meant to be seen and not heard. So like you don't make a peep, or else.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So the fact that, and that is, I think the stem of so many emotional problems is people just, they don't know how to deal with emotions.
Yeah.
Because you were told you don't have it in the first place. And if you have it, definitely don't show it, talk about it, or tell anybody about it. So yeah, it just comes back to the like finding creative ways to let them like funnel that into something else, where it's not just me needing to make the emotion stop. Yeah.
Yeah, my mom was very me and my mom did not get along when I was a teenager. And when I turned like 18 or 19, we sat around the fire and had some really deep conversations, and suddenly I was like, oh my gosh, like no, like everything made sense. Everything that I fought her on, I was like, wow, like she was trying to save me. She was not trying to hurt my feelings. She's not trying to make my life miserable. She was trying to save me from myself because of what she had gone through in her life. And so now when I'm dealing with my 14-year-old, she is already so much better than me at that age. And when she does something wrong and I want to like freak out or yell at her, it's like, well, no, like how would I have wanted to be dealt with? How would I have gotten the point across? And my mom did an amazing job. She tried really hard, but it's like I get to learn from what didn't work with me and try to work with my, like, it's like just generations of trying to.
That's really beautiful. And,
Yeah.
you're like the female line, and a lot of people, I'm glad you had that conversation at 18, because some people never get it. Some people never have that conversation.
Yeah.
Or they'll be like 65 and be like, wow, I've never been able to say the words "I'm angry" before without there being some sort of negative thing that happens to them after they say that.
Well, and see, me and my mom were so, like, I told her I hated her. I told the school lies about her because she worked at our school. Like, we were not. And then, I turned, old enough to know, I guess.
I'm not looking forward to the teenage years,
Yeah.
because it was pretty bad.
Yeah.
It's pretty bad. As
I know,
a
but
teenager.
you know what?
And I know nothing about teenagers, so I'm definitely going to be looking to you for some advice on the teenage girls front.
There's a show that Remy watches all the time called Superstore, and there's an episode where the mom is just like, oh, my daughter, she's just acting out and she's being so crazy and I don't know what to do. And it's like the answer is she's a teenager. Like, she's going through it. Her hormones are up and down, and you just have to go with it. Like, there's really nothing else you can do. So, and I've been dealing with that. It's like, just got to give her space to figure out who she is, right? So.
Yeah, so that she doesn't have to, leave the country for 10 years like I did.
So where did you go?
Well, I went to the U.S. I did my yoga training there. It was 3 months long in California. And then I came back to Canada. 6 months later, I got a teaching job in New Zealand. And I ended up staying there for 2 years. And then same thing, I was like, well, if I'm over here, I might as well go to Australia. Same thing, found a teaching job, stayed there for 2 years. And then I did some traveling in Indonesia, like just kind of through the islands that are there. And then the like final pinnacle moment of my traveling and teaching was in India. And I have such a fond love for India, and I always will. Yeah, and then I ended up coming back in 2017.
Wow. I believe that when I first met you, somebody told me you were from Australia. And I believed that for a long time until I think you had told me, oh no, I'm from like.
Oh, I
wherever.
lived and I grew up and lived in Calgary till I left when I was like 21.
I see.
Yeah.
That's cool. And so your parents moved from Calgary to.
They moved out here, while I was gone during that time. So I thought, well, I'll just come here to be close to them. And because it had been so long that my friends in Calgary, like, had just moved on. Like, they'd all, like, had kids and got married. And I was like, well, I'm kind of starting at ground one with that. So, it didn't really make sense for me to go back there.
Yeah, that's fair. I know. When you're in different stages in life, it's hard to relate sometimes, I find. Like, when I have friends that don't have kids, I'm like, I don't know if you understand.
You don't get it.
Yeah. Like, oh, and that.
The eternal vigilance that I have to have at all times.
Yeah, yeah. And the unconditional love that you have, that when somebody's like, well, just do this. You're like, it's not that easy, okay? When you love someone that much, where you're just gonna explode, it is not easy to just do.
No, it's
that.
not easy. That's like I said, you can't choose your triggers, but I always say like calmness and patience is a skill that can be cultivated and practiced, just like everything else. And I literally repeat that to myself sometimes during the day. Calmness and patience is a skill.
Yeah. Well, and me and a lady from church, Deanna, we're always talking about how, like, we're always like, God, give me patience. But God doesn't just give you, like, a heap of patience. He gives you opportunities to be patient, to practice
I love that.
being patient. Yes. Like, I'll be like, God, just make me patient. And then I'll get stuck behind a vehicle going 10 kilometers an hour. And I'm like,
oh, this is the
Thank
real
you.
life. Yeah, this is the real life application of that shit.
Whenever I end up in a situation where I'm like finding myself like, hurry up, I'm just like, thank you, God. Thank you, God. And then totally just changes my mind into being like, okay, I'm not going to die because I have to wait 10 extra minutes. Or, if I'm in a hurry somewhere and I'm like, oh, this person just won't go fast enough. I'm like, that's my fault that I didn't leave earlier, that I'm not on time. Like, so it's been
Yeah.
it's been an experience.
Being disorganized is like, this expression is probably not right, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like it's how the devil gets in, honestly, because when you're disorganized, it just seems like things snowball until you're so absolutely disorganized that you know, have a mental breakdown.
Yeah.
But it's all because like, well, I didn't plan for this and I wasn't ready for this, and then this unforeseen thing happened, like, oh, I couldn't sign into my bank account to do this, and then it snowballs, like it compounds upon itself until you're like, well, if
Absolutely.
I just had that one first thing organized, then none of this would have happened.
Yeah. Well, and that is actually a saying from the Bible, is don't give the devil a foothold. And so,
Being
disorganization
disorganized.
could be a
I'm working
foothold.
on it. I'm not naturally an organized person, so
Yeah.
I'm really working on that, and I have seen firsthand how much easier everything is when I'm just a little bit organized.
Yeah. No, absolutely. I feel the same way. But then I let things snowball. I'm like, eh. And then I pay for it, of course.
Yes.
But, yeah.
So that's something else I wanted to talk about or say was just that birthing at home, and particularly birthing unmedicated, because you can have a medicated birth at home or you can have an unmedicated birth in the hospital, but an unmedicated birth, like, it's hard. It is hard, and it's supposed to be hard. It's called labor for a reason, because it's hard and you're working and your body's working, but doing that without drugs, or like, and feeling how hard it is and how difficult it is, I feel like it so much prepares you for how hard motherhood is. I feel like those two things kind of go hand in hand. And whenever I'm struggling at home, I'm like, this is so hard. I don't want to do this. I don't feel like this today. I just remember like what labor was like. And I'm like, yeah, I can do it. I can make it through the day or
that's so
whatever if
cool.
it's hard. But it's just like this whole beautiful process. And it was just supposed to be like that. And so it just couldn't be any other way for me. Like, I've gone back and forth about like going to the hospital, not going to the hospital, and there's this sort of perceived amount of safety that happens in the hospital. Like we talked about, if you have the ultrasound and you're told your baby has some type of heart defect and would need a surgery right after being born, then probably you would choose to be in the hospital, right? Yeah. Unless you're just completely like, no, I want God to take over and fate is fate. And if the baby lives, that's what was supposed to happen. And if the baby dies, that's what's supposed to happen. But yeah, the hospital only provides a false sense of safety, in the sense of that something that could go wrong maybe 1% of the time, the hospital staff, doctors assume that it will happen 100% of the time. And so they take these precautions so that it doesn't happen. Because when you give birth in a hospital, and this is told to me by the last doctor that I saw, like, I always go and get myself and the baby checked out after. And he told me, like, if anything happens to the mother or the baby while they're at the hospital, it is a literal shitstorm for that doctor. I'm sorry, I swore. I'm not supposed to do that. But he said it's a complete legal, battle for them. And they have to, stand in front of their college or their peers or their judge, or I'm not exactly sure what the organization is called, but to defend themselves. And it's really not a pleasant thing for them to have to go through. So that's why, something that is a risk 1% of the time is assumed that will happen 100% of the time, like the vitamin K shot. So in very small amounts, there is internal bleeding in a baby after they're born, and the vitamin K shot helps the blood thicken. It's a blood thickener or a clotting agent, so it's injected into the newborn. There's adverse side effects, of course, but from what I know and have learned over the years is if you take vitamin K during pregnancy, it's not meant to... Babies are born low in vitamin K for a reason. So it's because when you have the baby, there's usually like all of these micro tears inside of the baby, and then they receive their blood from the placenta. and it's very thin and has lots of stem cells. So it's meant to be thin so that that stem cell blood can travel to these micro tears or anywhere else in the baby that it is needed. So even if you take vitamin K in pregnancy, in late pregnancy, it will not cross the placental barrier to make it into the baby for that reason. Like, I always say nature doesn't make mistakes. I'm a really big believer in that. So when they give vitamin K to babies in the hospital, it's to prevent internal bleeding. But surely there must be a way to tell which babies have bleeding and which babies don't. Maybe there isn't. Maybe it happens, over the next few days or a couple of days. I'm not really an expert on that, but I know that the vitamin K shot is the cause for jaundice in babies. Like, thickening the blood and the liver can't process it, and then there's this bile, and that's what creates
Wow.
jaundice.
That's crazy.
Like, none of my kids have ever had jaundice. I don't know any babies born outside of the hospital that have jaundice.
Yeah, Remy had jaundice. And that was awful. Like,
Very stressful for the baby on mom.
putting her like naked on a cold metal table under a light with a freaking
Not the vibe.
with a mask over her eyes to protect from the light.
Mm-hmm.
And she's just screaming, and I just have to sit there and let her because I'm not allowed to take her from the light because she's got jaundice. Ugh, that was the most, wow, that's crazy.
Well, and the fact that hospitals or doctors think that there's any better place for that baby than, like, on the mother is just crazy. Like,
Yeah. I know, I wish I knew all of this stuff back then, but everything happens for a reason. Sorry, my arm hurts.
it's a lot. It's a lot of, like, to know that, to, like, do the digging, and then to be able to stand up for yourself in the moment, and then also to, like, take on that responsibility of, maybe being wrong or something going wrong.
Yeah.
It's a lot. So I really don't blame any women for not doing that. It's a lot.
Yeah. But you do get a lot of pushback from, like, the world. Do you? Like, about home birth and stuff?
Not really.
No.
Not really.
Because people I talk to are like, oh, you don't ever have a baby at home. Like, it'll get stuck and then you'll have
It's
to.
just fear.
No, I know. And I always bring you up as an example. I know someone who has babies at home and she's so strong and she's awesome. And
It's just fear. And, like, as a pregnant woman, I would just stay very far away from those people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. So I think you've given people courage, if anything, to just, if that's what they're being called to do, then they can do it.
Mm-hmm.
Totally. And I also wanted to talk about how you are such a, like, you just know so much about natural nutrition, and I just think that's really cool.
Do I know that much? I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't know what I know. I know, like, how to keep myself and my family healthy, but it's just and I think what the health industry is, like, starting to learn now is that everybody's kind of baseline is so different that you can't really just apply the same
the food pyramid.
Yeah. Oh my God, the food pyramid. You can't apply the same advice to every single person and expect it to work, just because everybody is such a different, like, hormonal cocktail, and, like, the DNA and everything's so different. So
yeah. And so, okay, I know that I've been wanting to text you about this, but I haven't because I wanted to talk to you about it here.
Ooh, yay.
Because it's just, it's just so interesting to me. Okay, so I've been on carnivore for 5 weeks now. I've had a couple cheat days, not gonna lie. I've had a couple things where, anyway. Now I know that you have always, I think you posted on Instagram once about how, like, if your cycle isn't cycling,
there's something
wrong. There's something wrong. And so my 4th week of carnivore, I was supposed to get my monthly period, and I didn't. I mean, I did, but it, like, I wasn't, like, bleeding properly. So sorry to anybody who's like squeamish about this stuff. We're talking about periods, just whatever. It's part of my life.
Sorry, it's just part of our life.
So I was like being really strict about it, eating the ground beef and stuff, and then I wasn't getting like my period. Like it was like a little tiny bit, but I wasn't bleeding. And so then the next day, I was like, I could feel that I needed, like, it needed to release.
You feel like your body is trying.
Yeah. So I went and took Remy to Denny's after church, and I just had a carb meal. I had French toast and cream cheese and hash browns. Next day, I started bleeding. So, I don't know.
What's up with that?
Yeah. Like, what is up with that? Because, and I know it's not under eating, because I've been eating like 3,000 calories of meat and fats a day. So yeah, it's just like I love carnivore, and it's making me feel good, because vegetables honestly like make me feel, when I do eat vegetables now, my tummy is like, ooh.
I think vegetables might be a scam. Like not all of them, but definitely some of them, and like all the pesticides and too. But okay, so from what you described, it sounds like either you didn't ovulate. So that can, when you don't ovulate, you don't actually get a period. It's not menstruation. When you don't ovulate, the estrogen just builds up, higher and higher and higher until you have what's called like breakthrough bleeding. So it could be that. And so that would be characterized as like very dark brown. And it feels like your body's like trying to have a period. Like it's almost not the same. Like when you have a period, it's almost like there's like a whimsical type of energy about it. Like you need to lie down on the earth or on the ground, or just lie down and like, you know, put your hands on your belly, or just like be very like gentle and careful with yourself. There's not really that same energy. So once you know that, you'll probably be able to tell the difference. Like, so I always say that the period isn't the main event in the woman's cycle. It's the ovulation, and to make sure that you're ovulating is like way more important. Like don't even worry about the period. So making sure you're ovulating, or also what that could be is just low progesterone, because as you get closer and closer to, you know, day 28, your progesterone is supposed to be pretty high, and then you get the period and it drops. So it could be that your estrogen was just really high, maybe from the meat. Hormones in the meat. I don't know. You probably eat good meat.
Diamond 7.
Yeah. But also from what I know with, again, Ayurveda and traditional Chinese medicine, is like the sweet flavors, or like carbs essentially, they're calming, grounding, nourishing, and they again like give the body that sense of safety. Like historically speaking, or from a biological standpoint, like when humans had a lot of carbs, it kind of indicated that they were safe. They weren't in like hunt, fast, feast mode. They were in like kind of rest, and like the food is plentiful, so they can relax a little bit more. So maybe that was just it. Your body just needed the carbs and like felt that nervous system, you know, switch.
So how do you know if you're ovulating? How do you...
Oh, there's many signs. So you can have pain, a little bit of pain on one side or the other, like depending on which side your egg is coming out of, maybe. I think extreme pain is a sign of something else. Maybe it's also low progesterone, I can't remember. But also like your cervical mucus gets a little like stretchier. It's not like watery, like a little stretchier. So that's like to facilitate the swimming of the sperm. So, and then a lot of people test their body temperature in the morning. So before you even move, like have that thermometer next to the bed, and then check your temperature. And your temperature will go up the day that you're ovulating, up a degree or 2. I think maybe it's for 2 days or something. So you have to kind of establish a baseline first of what your temperature is, usually. But yes, I've read that it can be a little bit tricky, just because like if you get up and go to the bathroom before you do it, it can change it too. So you literally just want to like roll over.
Yeah, I think this watch that I have from Amazon, that's like a rip off of Apple Watch, but it's only $20. I think it gives me my temperature.
Yeah, you can probably get a watch or something to tell you if you're ovulating. Yeah. And that's another thing I find really funny, like about men and women. And I love men, so like I love you guys. But women have this like built-in internal gauge of what's going on, like how they feel. And also, you know, maybe you got your period early because you were in a state of transition in your life, and your body had to have this like shedding at that particular time. And so that can be part of it too, like the emotional causes. But women have this internal like gauge of where they're at, and to like tell them what's going on, and maybe look a bit deeper here, and like maybe you need to do some research over here. And then men on the other side are like, I wonder how I feel today. Like they don't even know.
They don't know at all. They're just like, they just snap at someone and they're like, I'm not angry.
Yeah, totally. Totally.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting.
Love you guys, though.
Yeah.
We need you.
No,
for sure.
Absolutely. It's a partnership.
Yes, yeah. That's what our gift to, the male species is like the heart-opening, emotional side of things.
Yeah.
While we're just protected and provided for. So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, that's so interesting. Like, for me, it's like, I don't even know if I want to continue carnivore, because to me, like the cycle is so important. Mm-hmm. If your cycle's off, it's like everything's off. Like I didn't feel well.
Yeah.
Like I felt okay physically, but mentally I was like, something's wrong.
Yeah, it's like when you're constipated, like it's not psychologically like something is supposed to come out. And that's the same with like a period. You're like, something's not quite right.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I think I ate low carb too once for so long that I didn't get a period for a year. And then I went to my yoga training, and then I just like let it all go. And I was like eating bags of jelly beans, and then I got my period back.
That's crazy.
So yeah, you need a bit of fat and a bit, like you need fat on your body to be able to.
Well, I eat a lot of fat, but like the protein. And see, this is where I found it to be a little bit worrisome, was because when I Googled it, like, I'm not getting my period on carnivore. All that kept coming up was, yes, period changes in carnivore, but way heavier for a lot of people because about toxicity. So like when you're eating a lot of like bad food, because McDonald's or crackers or high processed,
basically everything in the store that you can buy,
everything that's not in the meat, produce, milk section, I guess.
Yeah.
Even like store milk, like there's
even the milk, you guys.
Yeah, and so I read that like when you're eating really clean, which I was eating like butter and Diamond 7 meat, you can like bleed more sometimes for 2 or 3 weeks, because your like uterus will like be a secondary dump for toxins, and then it'll like store up in the blood, and then you'll have like really heavy periods because you're bleeding out all these toxins that you're not eating anymore. And so I was like, well, that's not happening to me. Like the opposite is happening to me. So then I was like,
my body's just absorbing the toxins.
Yeah. And I'm like, oh. And so it is interesting that as soon as I ate something sweet, something carby, is like goosh.
Well, my big thing, like, and what works for me, and I know that there's tons of health advice against this, particularly for women, is fasting.
Fasting, yeah.
And like, I love it. And I know that, eating breakfast is super important. You need 30 grams of protein when you wake up, and don't drink your coffee until after breakfast. And like, I think that those rules are really helpful for someone that's probably undernourished. But like, your girl's been pregnant for 5 years.
Yeah.
9 months times 5. So I need to not eat for a bit. Like, yeah, I feel like that's just what is working for me right now. And I feel really good.
Well, and I was fasting. I was doing the Fast Like a Girl, Mindy Pell's.
Yeah.
And I was feeling great. But then I wasn't like really losing any weight. And like, that's kind of my thing right now, is I'm just like, I want to look like I did 2-3 years ago, before I broke my leg, before all of that.
We were
stuff.
so hot.
I was so skinny. I'll get like Facebook memories. I'll be like, oh, but then again, I was also like doing drugs.
Yes, and probably undernourished and like not eating enough.
Very like scary situations sometimes, and so I think I was just like high anxiety, high stress, and so
unfortunately, metabolic health doesn't always equal skinny.
Yeah.
Like hormonal and metabolic health doesn't always mean weight loss.
And so that's why I did carnivore.
Like sometimes to have like a properly working thyroid, your body does need to gain a little bit of weight, like for that nervous system reset and like feeling of safety and satiation, and is that a word? All of that kind of stuff. I said it like it was a real word.
Oh, sorry, keep going.
I think that's all I was gonna say.
Yeah, it's tricky. And maybe that's just like a goal I shouldn't have because, you know.
Well, I think it's always a healthy goal to want to improve your fitness and like body and heart health. And I think exercise is probably one of the most important things on the planet. And then to also have a form of exercise that you enjoy is like even more important than that. So, and I worked out yesterday at the gym, and I had fasted like for 16 hours, went to the gym. And I don't find it hard to do that fast because I'm going to eat at, 10 a.m. or whatever. Mm-hmm. And that's not really that hard for me. But, like, I came home from the gym and I was like, workout endorphins are better than coffee. And I love coffee.
Yeah.
So, like, it's great. And I'm just, like, from being pregnant and, like, grumpy and miserable and sore and heavy. And, yeah, yesterday I was like, I just feel like a normal functioning person, like, very... energetic, and I'm not I don't need to lie down in the middle of the day anymore. Sometimes I do, but
yeah, I know. I need to get back to the gym. It's been a few weeks, and maybe that's part of what's going on with me. But yeah, it's just like getting there. And my favorite way to work out used to be dancing in the yoga room by myself. And now that Viking is in that gym, I love Viking. I love their equipment. I love the let's go attitude. Like that guy on their Instagram is so intense. I'm like that guy's like, I've learned so many things from that person. I forget his name, but he's got a beard. He's like the Viking guy.
That's cool.
Anyways, but then I go there and I just feel like I gotta be as good as these people.
Mm-hmm. Gym culture is a little weird.
I know that's not true. I know that I should just like do whatever I need to do, but I go there and I'm like, everybody here's a professional.
Totally. And gym culture is so weird. Like, you're in a place where people are going to look at your body. So if you're not somebody that, like, particularly wants that or enjoys that, it can be a little bit intimidating.
Yeah, and I try to wear big baggy clothes because I don't want people to look at me.
Yeah, same. I'm a baggy t-shirt, but the gym girl. I wear your t-shirt to the gym all the time with Amanda's face on it.
Oh, nice. Beautiful. I just feel like I'm not good enough to be there. And I know that's stupid. And I know that if somebody from there heard me say that, they'd be like, that's ridiculous. But I feel very convicted by their posts sometimes when they're like, you got to be doing this. I'm like, So, yeah, I don't know. I got to go back. But I don't dance there anymore because I'm too scared.
Whatever it takes, buy yourself some new shoes, new headphones, whatever it takes to get you there. That's what I need, new headphones.
Yeah. Well, and I also learned, so I've been using like machines for a while, like isolation machines, right? Mm-hmm. But then I tried to do a set of just normal squats with weight, and I can barely do it. Like, I can leg press 160 pounds, but I cannot squat more than 30 pounds. And so then I saw a video, of course, on their Instagram that was like, if you can do this leg press, it's because you're not using like your core and all this. And I'm like, oh, so I'm just like doing it lazily.
I'm just doing everything wrong.
Like maybe so in the end I need to strengthen my core. Is what I need to do. My core is weak. Like, yeah, I used to be able to do all kinds of stuff, like, and now I can't. So it's just like when you were really fit and then you want to be really fit again, it's like, can't I just get there, I feel like I'm in a lazy mindset, maybe.
Yeah, it's not, everyone always thinks about what they used to be able to do, but I'll just tell you, it's not coming back.
I know.
Like, yeah.
I know.
That was then, and then you might be able to do some different cool stuff now, but there's no going back. No one's back there anyway.
Yeah. And, like, part of my, like, I tried to serve a volleyball, 2 or 3 weeks ago, and I've had a shoulder injury ever since because I haven't served a volleyball like that for 5 years. 2020 was our last volleyball game before COVID, and they wouldn't let us in the schools anymore, and then I didn't go back because I was doing junior youth on Tuesdays instead. And so I tried to serve a volleyball and just snapped my rotator cuff.
Oh, gee, that's a tough injury, too.
So now I got to fast lots and get lots of autophagy.
Yeah. You need to do rows, very lightweight.
Yeah.
And just like 100 of them. That was what helped my rotator cuff
Oh, really?
injury.
You didn't get a surgery or anything?
No.
A bunch of people at work told me I
Bro,
needed
it's
to get a
just, like,
surgery.
very lightweight, though.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
gonna
That's
have to
what
do
worked
that.
for me. I don't know. I hope it helps at
Yeah.
least, like, manage the injury.
Yeah, it hurts a
So
lot.
interesting, like, shoulder injuries, carrying some burdens. I'm a big believer in, like, the body kind of telling you what's going on in the soul. I've posted a few little thoughts about that lately, but yeah, especially in the shoulders. I feel like as soon as you turn 30, and this goes for, like, a lot of people I know that now are in their 30s and have shoulder injuries or bad shoulders, and it's like you're carrying too much of weight and too much burden, and you've, like, burdened yourself with something that you don't need to.
That's
So
probably
just a different perspective on that.
That's probably true. Who knows? Yeah, life is weird. But yeah, so I know we talked about God a little bit, but tell me your where's your faith at right now? What's your
You said something earlier, and I was like, "Are we gonna go there?" Because I had an interesting thought about it. Because I grew up Catholic and went to a Catholic school for 10 years, and then I steered pretty hard away from that after the 10 years of schooling. And then just over the years, slowly found my way back again. And when I was traveling, like, I would go to churches and stuff in other countries just to kind of see what it was like. And Christianity is the second most common religion in India, so I went to some, like, Christian churches there, and I had a really beautiful experience. And then through motherhood, like, I think that everything that happens to you, whether it's good or bad, was designed to happen to you to bring you closer to God. Because like going through, like, loss, and I know you've experienced loss too, it's like through that, like, heavy traumatic experience, like, it has brought me closer to God. At first it's like, why would God do this? Or I don't understand, or, what did I do to deserve this? And then just through, like, exploring that thought and realizing, well, like, we're all God's children and you didn't deserve that, but it was something that had to happen for you to find your way back to God. And that was the whole purpose. So then if you apply that to the good things as well, that's kind of where I'm at with it. Is like everything that happens to you is designed to bring you closer to God. Hopefully it's not a bad thing, but sometimes it has to be, or you won't get it. You won't get it through your head.
Well, and I see a lot of visuals all the time on Instagram lately where it's like a lady, you really don't want to, like, you lose one flower and you're like, oh no, like, my life's over. But God has 100 more for you around the corner if you get closer to Him and follow His plan and stuff like that. And so I tend to hope that that's the case. I mean, I know it's the case. I mean, look at what the the last few years have been pretty insane for me, as you know. But like, every time I let go of something, I get something way bigger. And I don't like to say I'm being rewarded, but it's like, that's what it feels like sometimes. And I know a lot of people feel that way. It's like sometimes you just feel like you're God's favorite. You're like, what did I do to deserve this?
Yeah, God doesn't have favorites.
No,
so.
He doesn't. Absolutely. But everybody's His favorite. That's the whole thing is He's blessing and giving everybody exactly what they need.
Well, and I think that's a reflection of your faith, because ever since you went on this journey, I feel like you've been very much just like, no, like, it's God. Like, whatever is supposed to be for me will be for me. And so, like, I think that, not that like, that's what's rewarded, it's not good behavior. It's just like your faith makes it possible, just like opening up the application for you to be patient. So yeah. And then, like, when we experienced our traumatic loss a few years ago, it's like I was asking God for a miracle, and it's like I almost, like, could tangibly hear the word no. Like, God doesn't have favorites, and, like, this is what is meant to be happening for you. And then through motherhood too, like, so I used to be very into crystals and tarot cards, and I still do apply some of that knowledge to like just my own life and stuff, but I don't look to them for guidance anymore. It's like I want to ask God for guidance, because when I'm having like a hard day or something, it's not like I'm going to go pull out my tarot cards and be like, well, what do I do? I'm going to like pray to God for help and to make me a better mother, or like make me more patient and stuff. So, and then, yeah, I just feel like motherhood is also designed to bring you closer to God.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And some women's, I think, nervous system handles that better than others. Like there's definitely like, oh, like you seem to be like a natural mothering type or whatever. Like some people's systems can just handle that change a little bit better, or can handle like the added layer of difficulty that comes with everything that you do. Now, some people can handle it better and some people can't. But like I said, it's all a skill that can be practiced.
Yeah. Well, and the act of sanctification, becoming more like Christ, is very like that is motherhood, because you suddenly you have this person in your life that no matter what they do, you love them. And that's exactly what God does, is he loves us no matter how many times we do something stupid. He just loves us so much. And so I think that being a mother is becoming more and more Christ-like every day, if you can give yourself to that, and just like, because there are some mothers out there who are like, nope, get out, you did drugs on my house, I never want to see you again, write you off, and that's so super sad. And they don't want to be sanctified. They just want to be, I guess they're not called to be that. I guess they just want to, kick someone out of their house or
they
whatever. They
probably had drugs during labor, like they weren't prepared for how hard it was going to be.
Yeah, exactly.
And then it gets hard, and they're like, well, just get out. Like,
Yeah.
just, like, numb the experience. Just make it stop. I don't care how, just make it stop.
Yeah.
Which is definitely, like, some words that I've said in labor. Just make it stop.
Yeah. And that's so funny that you said that thing about the tarot cards, because I remember when you posted that, I don't know, the more, because, like, I know what happened with me, and it's like when I watch people, say, you know what, I'm going to go to God for guidance instead, it just makes me so happy, because I know what a amazing like thing that can lead to, right? And so that was just lovely.
I shared the other day too, like we're all just such beautiful pieces in each other's stories. So like you've been a big piece of that in my story, and like we all influence each other all the time. And yeah, I would just remember the day I was like, hey, Amanda, I kind of want to read the Bible. And you were like at my house an hour later with the Bible. Here you go.
Absolutely. Yeah, like anybody in my life, if they're
Amanda has lots of Bibles
I
to
do
give
have a lot
out.
of Bibles. I buy extra Bibles every time Dawn has a book fair, just so that if somebody in my life goes, hey, so I was kind of thinking about, I got one. Like,
Reading the book.
I have a brand new Bible in my car, just waiting for somebody to be like, I kind of want to get to know God, because because I just know how amazing it is, and how much better your life can be if you can just surrender. And I know a lot of people have a problem with the submission of it all.
That is a huge thing.
Yeah.
Submitting to a higher power, and then like even being comfortable with like the word God or that kind of thing. It's huge, but I think it's so necessary, especially if you're struggling with something and you're like, I don't know what to do. Well, like, number one, you can always talk to God. And then the second thing is, like, I feel like God intervenes in such a subtle way in their lives that it's almost like you're being shown and guided what to do. It's like, I don't know what to do. Oh, there's this book I saw that maybe had some information. It's like, well, go get that book, like you're say, I don't know, but you're being shown. You're being shown the way. Like,
yeah, ever since I kind of came upon the idea that every thought in my head, like if it's a good one, obviously, not if it's like, go do something bad or something. Every idea that comes to my head that's like pure and good is from God. And then it's like, well, like he just told me that, so I need to go do that thing.
Yeah. And so many people don't go do that thing. I mean, I certainly don't. Like, I don't even have that awareness sometimes.
Yeah. Like literally our our like main youth leader, Shauna, told me that one day, and my life has been so different. Like I'm just going after what God tells me to do. Like he'll just like all week I was like, oh yeah, I get a couple days off, from going to Bible study because, we're doing church renovations and maybe I'll just like hang out. And then these thoughts popped into my head like, no, you need to take some youth to the hockey game. No, you need to give these girls a ride. You need to get, you know what I mean? Like it's just all these things I keep getting these thoughts, and then it's like, well, I better do it if that's what God wants me to do, And some of them I didn't want to do. I didn't want to go to the hockey game the one night. I just wanted to like hang out. And then yeah, I just was like, well, this is what God wants for me, so I just better do it. But yeah. But I love following what he wants me to do because then like it was such a fun time and it was so rewarding and the girls had a great time and it's always turns out better than I thought it would be. So
yeah, we're just being constantly shown the way if we would just listen.
I know. And it's like when you get those little thoughts in your head that say, hey, do this, like just listen. Like
particularly if it's like you're struggling with something and you're like, but I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
It's like you are literally being given direct instructions, but you're just not listening.
Yeah. Yeah, and I've done that. I still do that. There's still certain things where it's like, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that.
If I could listen the first time for once, that would be great.
Yeah, I know. I'm getting better, but it's a struggle. It's a lifelong struggle of getting to know God's voice, I think.
That's beautiful.
And I look forward to it every day. So, like, even this whole podcast thing wouldn't be a thing if God didn't keep going, like, there are stories to tell. There are people you need to talk to. And you were even before I started this podcast, I knew you were going to be here.
Well, yes. We both love the sound of our own voices, so perfect.
Yeah. And I've always said, like, you should have, like, a freaking ASMR channel or something, because you just have such a calming, lovely voice.
Thanks. I think that's why I ended up being pretty successful at yoga, is because I would talk for 90 minutes, and it would be, like, somewhat pleasant to listen to. Mm-hmm. People would always say that, like, oh, that was a nice class. Like, I like the sound of your voice. Yeah. So I think that's why I ended up, like, being able to utilize, because yoga was really just my, like, ticket to travel the world, because I wanted to travel, and I was like, well, this is like a kind of a cool way to make money and do it. And then when you asked me to be on your podcast, I was very flattered. And then I started thinking, I'm like, I have so much to talk about.
You do. Yeah, absolutely. I feel like we could do this like 10 more times.
Yes. We can do the next one on homeschooling or something like that.
Oh, yeah. Let's do it.
Do you have any other like birthing questions?
No, I think you answered it all pretty well. I guess, like...
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I mean, unless there's anything you specifically...
Well, I will just say that there is nothing in the world like autonomous birth. Catching your own child and having that experience. Like we were talking about just earlier, it's like, I think about that for me, and I'm like, that's just how it had to be. There was no other option for me. Even though sometimes I will say, like, during labor, I, like, close my eyes and fantasize about being in the hospital. But that's just, like, what your brain does when you're scared, is, like, thinking that. But then I was very aware that, too, like, well, what is going to change? I'm not going to have an epidural. So what's going to change if I'm at the hospital? Like, I'll just be doing this on a rolly bed instead of my own bed.
And on your back with your knees up.
Yeah, and God knows what else happening. I know women who've had positive experience in the hospital, and I'm like really glad to hear that as well, but just birth is like a natural rite of passage, and it's just so important to experience that for yourself and like have that level of accomplishment. Like, my children are my greatest accomplishment in this life, and there's nothing in the world like the feeling of birthing and catching your own child and watching them take their first breaths, and like, you should be the one checking them over and cleaning them, and not like whisked off and bathed and rubbed and everything else. Like, it's probably not a very nice welcome for that baby, but I just remember like all the times that mine were born, it's like it was just quiet and like beautiful, and there was like maybe a salt lamp on or like some soft music playing, and we would whisper for like the first 3 days of their lives. yeah, and there's just nothing like it in the world.
Yeah. That's beautiful.
You got to do it, even though you're scared.
Yeah.
I mean, not you, but
Yeah. Well, now I'm
everyone.
going to. I'm
Yes.
going to. You've inspired me. You've re-inspired me. Now I just have to find a husband and do all that.
Yes.
And have a baby.
Well,
so I can have a home birth.
God
That's
works.
the goal.
Yeah.
That's the
yeah.
goal.
And I will say too, like, birth is such a, like, they say that when the baby's born, the mother's born again as well, like going from maiden to mother. And although it's less intense for your like subsequent children, there is like a bit of a death that happens for the mother, and like she's kind of like born as a new mom every single time. And it's not immediate, it happens slow. Like that's why it's called the fourth trimester, is you're supposed to just like be very chill for the first 2 or 3 months after giving birth. And then yeah, I love that. So like I want to have another kid just to experience that again, just to experience that transformation and that like kind of like cracking open and like there's God and everything's shining through and yeah.
I love that. Well, we've hit over an hour. So
Well, we knew that was going to happen.
we did.
We'll probably continue talking also.
Yeah,
well.
exactly. But yeah, I guess, is there anything you want to like make known to anyone? Is there anything you want to like shout out, like go to this business, whatever you want, whatever?
Nothing's really popping into my head at the moment. I just, yeah, we all play such a beautiful role in each other's lives, and like, I notice you guys, and yeah, just thank you for having me come on and tell my story, because it's so important to tell your story. And so part of like the rebirth that happened to me after my last birth in December was like not being afraid to tell my story. And sometimes I feel like around women who haven't had a home birth or a natural birth, like sometimes I feel like I can't talk about it because it would make them feel bad. Or like we've talked about before, like having to kind of like keep your mouth shut and shrink just so that other people don't feel uncomfortable. Like you should be able to celebrate yourself and your accomplishments, not to be like boastful or anything, because I think that's a sin in the Bible, isn't it? Is boasting.
Yeah. Well, yeah. If you're going to boast in the Lord.
Okay.
Yeah. Boast for what God has done for you, not what you've done, basically.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Good to know.
Yeah. I got a lot of verses up here. I don't know where they are, but they're in there.
Yeah, who remembers the numbers?
No,
just have
I
to
never
remember
do.
what it says.
Yeah. I'm always comforted by the fact that those numbers were added after. Like the Bible was written, and then all of the numbers were added after just as reference points for the world. Yeah. And so, yeah, don't ever feel
For
bad
our
if you're
little
not.
human brains.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So that we can go into the Bible and look up something very particular, right? And so, yeah, but no, I don't remember numbers and verses, but I know what it says because I read it all the time and I love it so much. But yeah, no, and we were just talking, like when the camera was off for a second because I had to do something, about how, that's what this podcast is about telling people's stories that I know, because you might think, oh, I want to listen to a celebrity or a YouTuber or like something silly like that. But it's like the people in our lives are so much more interesting than whatever is on the internet. And I don't know if this will make an impact with you necessarily, but when I had Sandra on, there's people in her life that listened to it and things happened where their minds were opened, or someone who hadn't spoken to her in a while was like, wow, that's really interesting. And so it's like, if I can make a difference in real people's lives that I know, I would much rather do that than talk about some kind of, stupid Twitter celebrity.
I like when you talk about Kanye though.
Yeah.
Because that's just juicy.
Yeah. And there are certain things that I have a vested interest in for unknown reasons. Again, when God tells me to talk about something, I'm like, all right, as long as it's not scathing or,
Yeah.
And I find it hard to differentiate what I should be talking about versus maybe I shouldn't talk about this because it's bad. But then it's like, well, no, you should bring the darkness into the light. That's another Bible verse, right? Like everything that is in the dark will come to the light. And if I'm the light bringer, so be it, So, Yeah.
Yeah, also very profound and beautiful. Not even just in the Bible, but like darkness being transformed back into light through the process of speaking it or, illuminating it. And so, yeah, just if you have a story, tell it because people want to hear. I want to hear.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's, I guess, a call out to anybody who wants to be on here. Feel free, contact me. I'm easy to find. I'm not like some kind of person who, anyways, yeah. Okay, so that's it. I guess thank you for listening, and like, subscribe. I never say that. Oh, I usually pray at the end though.
Okay, I'm
pray
down.
with me.
I'm down.
Okay. Do you have any prayer requests?
No, not specifically. Just, thank you for all my blessings.
Okay. Dear God, I just love you so much. You're just so good, and you're just so good. And thank you for bringing Sarah here today to speak, and I hope her words can touch someone in a way that they need. And just bless her and her family, just loads of favor upon her and her family, and, just bless them abundantly, and we just love you so much, and you're the best. In Jesus' name, amen. Yeah, the people at church sometimes when I have to pray, if I'm like a worship leader, I'll have to like pray, and then I always have like I always say it's like little kid prayers, like because everybody else is very like Heavenly Father. Like it's very serious.
I little kid pray too.
Yeah, and I just
I'm like, dear God, please help me.
Yeah, that's exactly me too. And it's like I don't have like the capacity to like make it sound serious or professional. And then they're always telling me, no, the way you pray is adorable and innocent, and I'm like, okay then. So
so interesting, like the things that we're so insecure about.
I know
people would like love that about you.
Yeah.
And I think as long as it's just like from your heart, it lands.
Yeah.
And so we've been like praying at dinner time and stuff too, and it's so cute. All our kids like fold their hands, and then like the little 1-year-old tries to do it. It's just so cute.
That's precious. Oh my gosh. Okay. All right. Well, thank you, and see you next time. Bye. Okay.
So cutie. That was fun. All the things. Well, coffee too makes me be like, let's talk about everything right now.